everyone, this is Annette with ASCardDesign and I'm so glad you're here. Today I'm showing you how to create a one-step full stamp background using the Simonsaysstamp Beautiful and Curious stamp set. I love this one. And inks from Simonsaysstamp and GinaKDesigns. This is a fast, easy technique that transforms your entire stamp set into a stunning card panel. We'll build a seamless stamped background, just like the one I'm showing you here, and then we're going to take it up a notch with this gorgeous floral focal image, which we're going to heat emboss and ink up, and it's just going to be beautiful. We're going to die cut it for some extra dimensions, so stick around for a simple trick that brings your handmade cards to life. All right, so we will start by stamping our full background, and I'm just going to take this full stamp here and we're going to ink it up in Simonsaysstamp Lilac. Okay, and we're just going to get ink all over it, and if it's not even, that's okay. This stamp set kind of lends itself to a, kind of like a vintage or a grungy look, so just lay some ink down, and I want to try to get it as straight as I can. And some of the stamps I've used, and they're probably not replaced quite as straight as they should be, but that's okay. And we're just going to lay a full half sheet of cardstock, and this is like a medium weight cardstock, like a layering weight. And I'm just going to gently press the cardstock onto the stamps. And we'll just do that and just carefully lift that, and there we have our full stamp background in one easy step. This is so cool. All right, so let me just clean this stamp set off, and we'll lay that aside for now. We are going to come back to some of these other stamps, but for right now I'm just going to lay that aside. And then we're going to take this panel and put some ink splatting on it. I'm going to bring in, I might have to zoom out just a little bit. I'm going to bring in my little ink splatting box, and we're just going to lay this panel right inside. And I know you're not going to be able to see all of it, but you'll get the gist. And I'm going to just use some acrylic paint in black, and just going to put a little bit of that onto an acrylic block. Every time I open that, I get it all over me, and I just did. So why should today be any different, right? And then we're just going to take a little bit of water and spray it just to thin it out, and spray my brush. I'm just using a small round brush. And then we just want to pick up some of this ink, and I always like to test the splatting off to the side. So you can see there's some pretty big globs. I want to get those off first, and then I'm just going to bring it onto the paper and just splat all around. I'll pull it out here in a second so you can see what I'm doing, or see what it looks like. Okay. I think that will look good enough. And we're kind of left with some really nice black ink splats. I think I'm going to do just a little bit more. And you know, the more water you have on your ink, the lighter it will be. So I'm going to go in with a little bit more of the paint that has less water, so it's a little more saturated, a little more dark. Okay. And this is what we have, just a little bit more, as you can see. So I'm going to let that dry for just a second. While that's drying, I am going to clean this off. So now that we have that done, the next thing I want to do is I want to bring in a little bit of ink, and I'm just going to use this blending brush. This brush, I got a little bit of purple on it, but it's kind of my orange brownie colors that I use it for, and I was using it with this honey mustard last, so I know that the ink on here is honey mustard, and just with the leftover that's already dry, I just want to kind of bring in some color just randomly. We're going to crop a section of this, not sure where, probably down here, because I want to use that focal image. So let's make sure we get some ink down here for sure. Okay. All right, so that's what we have, and next we're going to go ahead and ink smoosh on our panel. So we're going to set this aside. This is going to be our background. We'll die cut it in a little bit. I am going to bring in this kind of like a mixed media craft mat. It has a sticky side on one side, so we're going to definitely use that. And we're going to ink blend on here, or ink smoosh I should say. And the colors I'm using are 3 mostly. I'm going to use Plum Punch. These are pretty fall colors. Prickly Pear, okay, and the Honey Mustard. We're going to use that. And I may add some Tangerine Twist just to give it a little bit of color. So we'll see how that goes. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the other half sheet of paper. So the first half, this was just an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock. I cut it in half. So I stamped using half of it for the background, and the other we're just going to lay a bunch of ink down. So let's start with the light color. Let's do Prickly Pear, and I am going to have to dry this in between colors. Okay, so just going to lay some ink down and wet it, and then we're just going to drop the cardstock down, just wherever. Okay, and that is all I'm going to do for that. Then let's go ahead and heat set it before we lay down the next color. And I'm just going to bring in my heated craft tool and just turn that on, and I'll just give that a light passing. It will dry very fast. Okay. And the reason why is, as you probably already know, some colors when they blend together when they're wet, they create brown. So we don't want that. We want these colors to kind of stand on their own. Alright, so the next color I'm going to do is, let's go ahead and do the Plum Punch and see what happens. Just put some ink down, wet it, and we're going to lay it down. This technique is kind of fun because you don't know what you're going to get. Just lay it down and see what happens. Alright, so I think that's going to be enough for that. Oops. Let's just clean this surface off before I get ink everywhere. And we'll go ahead and give that a little heat. All right, let's do a little bit of honey mustard. I don't want to do a lot of that, so we'll just put a little bit of that down. Get some water, maybe put it up here. That's pretty. I'm going to try to get that little area, and maybe down here. Just to really get it. I think it'll really pop once we get the Tangerine Twist on there next. All right, let's see what we can do. Let's just get kind of that all over. Oh yeah, that looks really nice. And let's try to get some here. Okay. Let's just stop there. I'm gonna hold them and fold them, as they say. And let's go ahead and dry that. And this is gonna really come alive. We're gonna stamp our focal image on this, and it will automatically give it instant color, which will be really pretty. And that is still pretty wet, so I'm just gonna heat it a little bit more. I really want that to be dry. Okay, so now we have our dried panel, and we're going to go ahead and do some stamping on this. We're going to go ahead and put it in our mini MISTI. Let me get these inks out of my way. I think we're done with this mat as well. We can just move all of that out. My cheat notes, get those out of the way. And I kind of want to see where I want this image to go. So we're going to bring the stamp set back in. All right. And we're going to use this focal image, and then I also want to use this stamp, Blessed Are the Curious. So I'm going to stamp the Blessed or the Curious on a separate piece of cardstock. So we're just going to set that there for right now. And so you just kind of want to see where you might want your stamp. And I kind of like this saturation of color. This is a little too solid for me, but this has a little bit of everything going on. So I may just stamp it right like that and move it up this way so it gets a little bit of the purple, a little bit of all of the colors. All right, so we are going to do some heat embossing on this. So it's very important. We're going to pull in some Simonsaysstamp anti-static powder, all right? And we're going to powder up this panel really, really well because I don't want embossing powder everywhere. So let's just powder it up. And then we're going to take some GinaKDesign Black Onyx Premium Dye ink, and we're going to ink this stamp up very well. We want to get a lot of good ink on here, and then we're going to give that a good press. Okay, I'm going to do it again. I did miss some areas, so just do it as many times as you need, and that's why the stamping platforms are a great idea. Okay, and give that a good press, and that looks really good. And we are going to die cut this out, so it'll be much easier to see once we do that. So the next step is don't move your stamp. Leave it exactly where it is. Leave your paper where it is. Wipe the stamp off. Get it dry. Then we are going to go ahead and go over the stamp again with the Embossing and Watermark ink in clear from Simonsaysstamp. So just go ahead and get that good and inked up, and we're going to stamp this right on top of that black onyx. And this is a sticky ink right here, and it will take a little bit longer to dry, so that will help our embossing powder to stick to it, and then we can heat set it. Okay, so let's just get that down real well. Give that a good press. All right. Next, we'll bring in our anti-static powder and get a piece of paper that I can catch the powder with. Go ahead and do that. You know what? Well, no, we'll go ahead and do this. I forgot to stamp my image, but we're going to go ahead and get this heat set first. I may just stamp the image off camera since it's going to be the same process. Powder the paper, ink the stamp, lay down the embossing powder, and heat set it. Okay, so just make sure that has a minute to adhere, and then pounce off any of the extra. And then we will funnel it back in. Great, and then we will go ahead and heat set that. I'm just going to warm up my heat tool and melt the powder. I'm going to start from underneath, and we should see that powder turning black. There we go. You just take your time and keep your tool moving underneath it. And I always like to finish on top, just a little bit. And there you go. That's going to look so pretty once we die cut it. So I'm just going to let that sit and dry for a minute. And while that's drying, I am going to clean this up and go ahead and stamp my greeting, and then I'll be right back. And then I'm going to use the coordinating dies. I'm going to use this die right here that'll cut out the floral image And also the Blessed Are the Curious. I went ahead and did that, and here's the die for that. So I went ahead and cut down this panel. Let's bring in my Sizzix here into the view. And here is the stamped image that I also heat emboss, and it's probably going to be hard to see. Let's see if I can get this to work. There you go. You can see the glossy finish. And I cut out an extra piece that I am going to glue this together just to give it a little depth and dimension. But first, let's get this focal image die cut out, because I think it's going to look pretty amazing once we get it cut. And my cutting mat is so warped. I need to clean it and dry it and let it get reshaped here. But so you just want to position this, and okay, we're going to start over with this section because my head was in the way and I had to edit a big chunk of this out. So let's go ahead and just position this die. Just take your time with it and make sure it's even all the way around, and then tape it down. Tape it down well. Don't want it to move. And I'm a little concerned because my plate is warped, so I'm just going to make it concave so this won't slip. And then we will run that through the die cutting machine. And I'm only going to run one of these layers through. I'm not going to do another layer to add dimension. I want this is going to be glued on top of the cardstock, so it will already have a little bit of dimension that way. And then there is your beautiful floral panel. So it has a little bit of all the colors going on, and it is glossy and shiny, so that will look very pretty on front of the card. And then the next thing we're going to do is crop this panel and see where we're going to die cut that. So for that, I am using the stitched triangle die from GinaK's Master Layouts 2. And let's see, that is the larger stitched triangle, or not triangle, rectangle. Yeah, I know my shapes. And of course, we're going to be using this focal image. So I want to put my crop down here somewhere, but we also have Blessed Are the Curious. And I'm going to crop a little bit of that off because it can go off of the panel a little bit, no problem. So we'll go ahead and put that right about like that. And we'll tape that down, and we will run that through. Okay, let's see what we have. And I can use the rest of this background for something else. I could always die cut that butterfly, so I'll save that. But there's our panel. You can see it a little bit better with the ink splatters. Okay. So now let's put this card all together. Let's get everything I don't need out of the way. So we'll pull in all these little pieces and parts. Let me get my die put away so I don't lose it. And then I previously cut the mat layer from the same Master Layouts 2. So I'm just going to go ahead and start assembling this card. So we'll glue the panel to the mat layer. And all of the supplies that I'm using today are in the description below. So if you're curious, just click on that More button and you'll see everything. All right, so we'll just lay that down. And then I'm going to go ahead and put this on the card base. So this is just a US A2 card base, and it's going to be a side folding. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stamp my logo on the back right now. Get that out of the way. And there we go. And then we'll go ahead and put this on the card front or card base. Then we'll go ahead and lay down the focal point because I think that's the best part. Saving the best for last. Okay, so let's get these two glued together. And this is just a piece of card scrap I love to use my scraps to kind of build dimension on my greetings. Sometimes I use foam tape, but this is a great way to use up scraps, and we all have them. If you're a paper crafter or scrapbooker, you have scraps. There's just no way around it. And then we're gonna go ahead and glue this down. Okay, we're just gonna put it right over top of that image, and then we'll trim off the excess. And I didn't want to do it, I did want to glue this down before I put it on the panel, or not the panel, but the card base, because I wanted to see, you know, exactly where I needed to cut. So let's just line it up so it just totally covers the image underneath. Okay. That looks good. Then I'm going to bring in my little owl, stone owl, and oh, I don't have an acrylic block handy, but I do want to just make sure that that is stuck down real well before we cut it. And then we'll go ahead and put this greeting down. And again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to just line it up, and some of it's going to come off of the panel, and I actually, that's kind of the way I prefer to do these. I love when the focal image or the greeting is coming off the panel just a little bit. I just think it adds a little something. And then this is super easy to trim. All you need to do is get a pair of long bladed scissors, turn your card over, and just go right along the back of the card. Okay, and just snip it. And there you go. It just lines up beautifully with the side of the card. It won't interfere with the envelope. And that is our finished card. I do leave the inside of my cards blank, so whoever I'm sending it to, you know, I can write a personal note, or if I'm selling the card, you know, the recipient or the person purchasing the card can write their own personal message. But that's it. That is just how you make a quick multi-layer, kind of a mixed media card. And I do have a playlist on mixed media cards or vintage style cards, and I'll link that at the end of this video if you'd like to watch some of those videos or check out one of them. But anyway, that's the card project for today. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the next video. Until then, have a great day.